Cool.
From project reviews to incredible interviews, along with the general things in Web3, CraigO's Crypto Corner covers the space in a fun and engaging way. We dive in so our listeners can conceptualize, plan, strategize, and implement their very next move. We are quickly becoming a platform that enriches and supports the overall foundation of Web3. In order to grow, you need your voice to be heard. If you have infinite curiosity, then CraigO's Crypto Corner is just for you. Come join us.
You're tuning into CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with the leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3. I want to welcome everybody into Twitter Spaces, Facebook, YouTube Live, and we've been doing LinkedIn for about the past 4 weeks. Really excited for that. And we do have a 2X Dario giveaway, Rotten Antisocial Club. Super excited about that. I want to welcome in my co-host, Mr. MetaMatt. How are you?
How's it going, Craig? Excited for the giveaway. That's awesome. Giving away some garbage, as I keep saying on Twitter, y'all call it, but it looks like a really good art.
Not only is it really good art, he is so plugged and engaged with his community. I'm really excited about today's guest, and you're in the metaverse, little theatric. I'm really excited to see you here and have you in the studio, really engaging with our Twitter Space audience and create some great content as we do every week on Wednesdays. Eventually, by the way, we're going to be moving to 8:30 p.m. Wednesday evenings, I believe the week of the 17th. So that's still up in the air, but I believe we're going to define that time soon enough. And I hope you're looking forward to a great episode today.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. And let's bring up Ralph Quintero of the Daily Ralpha. Ralph, our weekly Daily Ralpha update. I always have infinite curiosity, I think, is what's allowing our podcast to grow. And by the way, it's one of my favorite digital asset collections. It's not about a monetary value. It's about the knowledge growth where we plot, plan, strategize, and implement our moves here in Web3. What's up with you, my friend?
What is up, Craig? What is up, Matt? Good to see you, boys. As always, exciting to join you on a Wednesday. Always gets me pumped about the middle of the week. A lot of people don't like Wednesdays. I like Wednesdays, especially because I get to hang with you guys.
Oh, we do too, by the way. And that beautiful website that's above you, I think it's where it is it's the Daily Ralpha update weekly. It comes in, and by golly, 80,000 subscribers. It's absolutely free. It gives me everything I need to know. And I realized something in there this morning, but I first want to talk to you about Big Ink, which is in one of our Twitter threads, if you can find that, Renee. And maybe that's where we should start, if you're good with that, Ralph.
That sounds amazing. So Big Ink was one of the early project finds that we shared in the Daily Ralpha a couple of weeks ago, and I had a great feeling about the project. The site looked solid. The tech that it was built on looked extremely solid. I didn't know much about the team. They were working in stealth, and lo and behold, we found out that it was actually the team behind Truth Labs and Illuminati Goblin Town. So this is essentially going to be the kickoff for Goblin Town Season 2. And, if you think back to what Goblin Town was able to accomplish last year, as we were in the bear market, I mean, they essentially were the ones who stimulated some life back into the market. Are we going to see that happen this time around? I don't know, but I am excited about it. If any team can do it, they can do it. They can definitely build some excitement around this project. So you should definitely check that out if you're not on the list for that already.
Yeah, I picked up 2 of those pyramids. I love what they're doing. I think the community is great. The storytelling is great. I'm looking at those goblins, and they're looking real sexy right now. I mean, as ugly as they are, I get excited inside. I do want to talk to you a little bit about how people are positioning right now in this market from the venture capitalist side, right? The Fed hasn't really laid out a roadmap of how businesses should approach this from their protocol, and is part of the reason why I think money's not being deployed at the rate that it is. But then on the other side of things is that we're seeing companies like Sports Illustrated. We're seeing companies like Atari, which was in this morning's Daily Ralpha. We're seeing big companies with big brand names making moves, but they're doing it maybe with a level of caution. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, look, we've talked about Operation Choke Point on this show before, and it's real. The government is going above and beyond many measures to make it impossible for crypto companies to do business. I'm not a huge fan of that going down. We saw First Republic be acquired by JP Morgan. So we're seeing all of these crypto-friendly banks being taken out one by one. And I think what's happening for a lot of brands is that they're sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what's going to happen. even the brands that are getting involved are almost dealing with Web3 at arm's length. I know for a fact that a couple of these big brands that we're seeing trying to onboard the next million people into the space actually don't have any of their digital assets on their own balance sheets. They're using agencies, and they're having the agencies hold on to these things because they don't know. They don't know where regulation is going to go, if eventually NFTs are going to be considered securities or not. So, even the ones that have seemingly dove in headfirst are being very cautious at this time.
And I think that's important. It's something for us to look on and really reflect before we make moves. But there's some really great opportunities with some tremendous upside. And I think this is a very exciting space that we're all in. And I want to get to today's introduction. And Ralph, you can stick around for a little bit. I would love that. And then when you have to pop out, please do so. But it was just great to connect with you about Big Inc., about venture capitalists and what they're doing with their money on the sidelines. And then also thinking about First Republic being purchased by Chase, and realizing that a lot of the crypto-friendly banks, their number could be up because maybe the Fed isn't feeling them. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's good to have you on the episode as always.
I appreciate you, and I hope that we see a turnaround in the economy soon. Although all of the indexes that I follow are not showing great signs. UPS shipments are down. The underwear index is down. The lipstick index is up. There's a lot of things going on right now that are not boding well for the economy.
Yes, by the way, I'm going to do a tweet about the underwear index. We talked about that. Oh, I want to buy some underwear. That's not a good signal, people. And when the UPS shipment isn't happening as quickly, or there's not as many packages, that should be a concern too.
And when your wife is buying lipstick instead of other big ticket items, that's usually a leading indicator that things are about to slow down.
Wow, whoever thought lipstick and underwear? What a great combination to talk about this economy.
Consumer market, right?
You're not kidding, Meta. All right, let's get to today's intro. All right, we get to speak with one of the most notable people in the Web3 space, Mr. Yossi Hasson. He is an avid collector, strategist, podcaster, NFT founder of Omega X Runner, CEO of Hello Metaversal, which is focused on the essential trends surrounding art collectibles, helping you to capitalize on your digital assets with a focus on both short and long-term opportunities. He has a collection of over 2,000 NFTs across 250 different projects. He is a venture-backed tech entrepreneur and gamer, along with being an early adopter of the blockchain. He has put his own money to work in being an angel investor in over 60 different startups. Let's plot, plan, strategize, and implement for today's guest, GM Yossi. How are you doing?
I am doing great, and I love the underwear lipstick index. I got to start adding that to our analysis.
Yes. So if you start buying underwear, the theory is our economy is not doing so well, and if our significant others are buying lipstick, well, that's not a good indicator either.
Lipstick and not going to see some shows on Broadway. That's the thesis.
That makes for a boring night. That's all I'm saying. I do want to start off with first is Hello Metaversal. How and why did you launch this platform, and what is the current value that it delivers to its subscribers that engage daily? And Tony, if you can do that screen share for us, that would be great. I'm just pulling it up right now.
Yeah, so Metaversal, why we exist, or kind of our mission is to build a better digital world. And how we do that is we build and invest in Web3 native IP to create better decentralized digital world that empowers individuals to be able to own their digital assets, which is a 0-to-1 thing that now exists with NFTs, and to be able to transact freely and express themselves without fear. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that blockchain and NFTs has created a new paradigm in how we can own and transact our digital lives. And we've seen with the growth of technology in our lifetime that while tech is a great enabler, the structures that exist today pretty much have gone into a monopoly with 4 or 5 companies who basically control the internet, and they control our digital lives. They control our data. And we think that that is not a good thing to continue with, and that decentralization and blockchain and NFTs represents a force to equalize that equilibrium that exists today, and really is where we should be putting our focus and attention. So what do? We invest in the creators, the builders, the artists, and the technologists that are going to make that a reality. onboard the millions of people into the Web3 world. And we do that on the edge of culture, where we think most of the things that are exciting and interesting plays there, not in the financial realm. We've heard of kind of Bitcoin and Ethereum in the financial realm. We think what's most interesting is those sexy goblins that you spoke about earlier on the call today.
Yeah, no, I love that. And by the way, you mentioned Bitcoin, so I want to start there. But just on a light recap, I love how communities like Hello Metaversal are building, creating culture, sharing ideas and thoughts amongst each other, because part of building that community is probably led to your Omega X Runner collection, which we're going to talk about. I want some details on that. But before we do, I want to dive into Bitcoin ordinals. Is this a temporary trend? You know, it's revolutionary development for the ownership economy. But one of the things that I think about is I am a holder. There we go. Of on-chain monkey, and basically our Genesis monkeys were inscribed on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain. And when I hear that, I'm like, well, what does that mean? And so maybe a nuance, we'll break that down in a second. But are Bitcoin ordinals, is it temporary, or is it a way to take those Bitcoin owners who are so serious, and that's a completely different culture, and bring them into something that's going to last long term?
Yeah, well, Craig, you used the word culture, and I think that is the key word that is happening here on the Bitcoin blockchain. If you think of these blockchains as almost cities that are being built, and what needs to happen in these cities is there needs to be cultural events. There needs to be things that bring people together, that makes these cities valuable. And Bitcoin, for a long time, has tried different use cases on being able to build that. It doesn't have a smart contracting language. It doesn't have a lot of the flexibility that Ethereum has. And what Ordinals has done in a very clever way, building into the way the protocol works itself, is allow for people to use inscriptions as the language to be able to build that layer on top of Bitcoin. So you have this big city, Bitcoin, that now has the ability to inject culture into it. And we're seeing that has started to take off. The first million ordinals took a couple of weeks to inscribe, and then we're seeing that is accelerating. We've gone from 1 million to 2 to 3 in a shorter timeline every single week. So from our side, from Metaversal side, we don't think this is a flash in the pan event. We think this is very big for the Bitcoin world and the Bitcoin community, and bringing and injecting culture onto that chain. And we're going to see a lot more innovative projects, a lot more interesting projects starting to use Bitcoin ordinals. We're already seeing infrastructure being built around it, wallet technology, marketplaces, etc., to make it easier for people to start using the Bitcoin chain in the ordinals world. And I think that is a trend that is going to continue to accelerate and is going to be extremely relevant. And for those of you that are listening, you're extremely, extremely early if you start to pay some attention there. We're talking about weeks in the making here, not months, not years, literally weeks.
And I think that's very exciting, because you bring up a really powerful point, is that the inscription is on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, because Bitcoin operates in a certain manner. It doesn't operate exactly like Ethereum. And I'm never going to be this huge techie guy that deploys smart contracts. This is my zone right here, is to interview smart people who do those things and then try to understand from a simple point, because we're going to onboard more people. We need to see the Sports Illustrated. We need to see the Amazon. We need to see big communities making moves for mass adoption, so that this doesn't become such a foreign space as it is, because we're dealing with regulation, but we're also dealing with the nuances of wallet address, public, private key, seed phrase, a lot of different things to get involved. But that's where I think the greatest opportunity is. So I appreciate you breaking that down, because every time I get a chance or an opportunity to conceptualize what one of my brilliant guests has to say, it only helps to make us better at what we do. Let's talk about Omega X Runner. I want to understand about your community. When is the launch? When Lambo? And tell us a little bit about that. And Tony, in a second, we're going to go to screen share. I'll just cue to you. Go for it, my friend.
Yeah, so Omega Runner, what is that, and where is the community, and what are we doing there? Well, it's a new take in how to develop really immersive entertainment IP and become a leading Web3 brand and entertainment brand. We partnered up with the greatest storytellers in the world. It's a Hollywood studio called Clubhouse Pictures. Some of the co-creators of The Hunger Games, I, Tanya, Kate, movies that people have gone to see and have loved, the blockbuster hits, multi-billion-dollar blockbuster hits, are great, great storytellers. And what they were telling us is that the world of Hollywood entertainment, the world of studios, is a pretty difficult one to navigate. All the power is concentrated in the world of the studio. And you only really know if you've got a hit when you bring it to market. You release it on big screen and you see what the response is. And there's no way for consumers, for people who go to the movies, to really engage with that story and to be able to help bring it to life, to be part of that community from the beginning days. And the way I think about that is, if you're a Star Wars fan, as an example, you didn't really have a chance to be involved in the origin of that story, in the genesis of that story, and bring it to life with the creators, with George Lucas, with the screenwriters, with the developers of it, and really get the behind the scenes look in the development of that. Now, how cool would it be if you could do that? And NFTs, what that does is it enables us to be able to bring that forward, to bring the community to day one, to be able to launch with the community and build the story together in bringing that into a Hollywood franchise. And that's what we're doing with Omega Runner. The story itself is a futuristic world where the currency of power is speed. It's a universe where there is no battleground. The battleground is the racetrack. It's a grueling 21-day race that the winner of this race wins power over planet Omega. There's 4 key nations, all with different abilities and reasons as to why they may win or lose. There's a series of core characters, and they're going to be NFTs. Those are the characters that people will be able to own and hold and then participate in the co-development and the creation of the story together with some of the best storytellers in the world. So that's the project, When Alpha. It's coming to the market pretty soon. We're waiting for the right timing. We see gas prices are exceptionally high right now, with meme coins and shit coins dominating the market. And also NFT trading volume is pretty down at the time being. So we're waiting for the right time to bring it out. Our Discord is open. The community is growing. We have 50,000 followers on Twitter, and we're building in that community first.
By the way, you can have them pay in Pepe, because everybody's buying on Pepe.
And everyone's Pepe rich.
I want to hear from Matt in a second, but let me throw this out to you. But it's going to be launching on the Ethereum blockchain, correct?
That's great. Well, we have used layer 0 technology, not to get too technical, but that allows us to move those assets onto any chain, and we have a whole roadmap of what we're going to be doing on different chains. And think of kind of like your tour of a Formula One event, going from nation to nation, country to country. What can we do with that type of mindset with this Omega race on different chains?
No, I love that. And I like the idea that you're cross-chain agnostic. I think that's incredibly important because we're going to see a lot of different communities starting to play. I mean, when I look at, On-Chain Monkey, when they launched onto Ethereum and then they started to inscribe on Bitcoin, it was really exciting to see a community that I'm always aware of going cross-chain, because it is. Even though they're close in relative relation to each other, it's great to see that. And I like the idea that you've got a lot of Hollywood works in this whole thing, from Hunger Games, one of my favorite movies. And I think the storyline is important. So I implore anybody who's listening in now, go follow Omega X Runner. Listen intently. I'm sure you do spaces in there as well. I know I'll be popping in to listen to what you're doing. I always like to read through the tweets. I like to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you guys have questions for him, tweet it in here so we can see and get those questions answered in real time. And we're going to put you to the test on some questions on some alpha, because I consider the alpha not the degen plays. As we said before I come on the podcast, I try as much as I can to practice JOMO, because I can tell you tax harvesting got me into some big trouble. Matt, what are your thoughts right now on what you're hearing from our amazing guest?
I got a couple questions, actually. So it seems like the holders are the ones who actually create the narrative, create the story. Is it going to be a TV show or a movie, a comic? Like, how does the actual is it going to be what's the format?
Yeah. So the holders don't create the narrative and the story. They're kind of, if you think about it in world building terminology, we have the team in the Omega camp that are creating that world. They're creating that lore. They're creating the structure and framework, like you have in Star Wars. All the different lexicon of words, the things that work, that don't work, etc. Holders can, within that framework, build their own side stories within their characters and be able to commercialize those stories. But the core arc of that story is being built and developed by our storytellers, by Blaze Hemingway. He's the writer. He's involved in Disney Pixar Trust and a whole bunch of franchises that you've heard on. That's where the majority of the scaffolding of the story is being created or created there. In terms of where we're taking it, we are going to take it into a animated series as kind of the first step. We've already released a comic. So we've released the comic books for it. There's a series of comics that have come out to help people understand the lore and the story and the world building that is coming into it. But the ambition is to then take it into an animated series. And then from there, we may progress it into a game type of franchise. I don't like saying that because everyone is building a metaverse game and they're going to go into that. But if you think about the IP that is being created here, it really has the propensity to do that. But first step is really to entertain, to build people into that lore, to build that community around great storytelling. And what does that look like? And how do you take something like this and turn it into a blockbusting animated series?
I like that it's not just the holders. Because I was wondering, like, how do you keep everyone from just doing spoiler alerts if all the holders know what's going on? But you mentioned that every seems like it's true. Everyone's making a metaverse game. I know during the bull run, I worked alongside a lot of projects where everyone was doing a comic book. Stoner Cats was a very, very popular NFT. Everyone was talking about. Mila Kunis was in it. Ashton Kutcher was a voice actor. I think they had like Chris Rock, a whole bunch of great, big names. That was, the whole concept being there were going to be a Netflix series based off of NFTs. Of course, it did not go as planned. I'm curious, everyone does make mistakes. Is how we learn from them. Is what you were really, makes us successful. I'm curious, what did you learn from Stoner Cats, and what you're going to do differently to make sure that you aren't the next, Stoner Cats?
Yeah. So, what Stoner Cats did well, they timed it well. They came out well with what they were trying to do. Our approach is very different. We have a much, much, much smaller supply. We're not going with a 10K PFP and trying to raise $10 to $20 million to go and fund the animated series. Metaversal is a venture-backed $50 million organization. We have the co-creators and co-producer of the Hunger Games, well-known movie producers, direct line into the world of Netflix or Apple TV. We have those relationships. So this is not a capital raising exercise that we're doing. It really is a community building exercise to bring people on early into the IP and the production of that IP and building it out. So our supply is much smaller, what we're learning. So we're thinking of about a 3,333 mint. We are giving a much lower price point on that, and really is to bring in that core community and reward those people who are at the start of the journey, not us trying to extract value today, that this is our moments to generate $10 million out of this franchise. We're playing the long-term game here. And in many ways, that isn't so rewarded in this industry when you have short-term flippers and speculators who are looking for the thing that they can flip. We're the opposite of that. So if that's the thing that you're trying to look for here, this isn't that project. What we're really looking for is those people who want to build a connection to the next big Hollywood franchise.
I like what you're saying, and I want to just throw it back, right? You're $50 million VC backed for Metaversal, and you guys are being very careful and cautious, especially during this time. As I said at the beginning, my conversations offline with Ralph Quintero from the Daily Ralpha is there are a lot of VC money just sitting on the sidelines, waiting. They're plotting, they're planning. They're not just deploying money frivolously. And then you also mentioned that you're going to have about a 3,000K collection, approximately, give or take. What is the token price of Omega going to be?
Yeah, so we're pegging that at 0.06 ETH. We don't know where ETH is going to be by the time we mint. So it could be up, it could be down, but that's where we're pegging the pricing for that collection. Yeah, and we'll bring it to market on that.
And I also like that you don't have a specific date. And the reason I think definites or specifics in this space can really hurt. I'm watching sort of what Big Ink is doing and how the story from Illuminati, the Goblin, how they're Goblin Town, how they're handling everything. And I enjoy the suspense, especially as a collector and somebody that needs to practice a bit more of JOMO. The other thing that I like about what you're doing, and you recognize it, is that you're hitting a lot of podcasts, and we'll talk about some of the other ones that you've been on, Scott Melker. I mean, what's an honor to share the stage with you right now. But social currency is something I often talk about. And I say right now, my head is down working in this opportunity market. It's not a bear market. It's how you view it. And I think one of the things you realize is that if you have the social economy and we build relationships like this and we create content for those that are tuning in, and everybody on Twitter Spaces, I appreciate you. I want you to go follow and engage with Yossi. I don't know if you're impressed, but I surely am. And you create that social currency, you're then able to have the attention economy. And when you have that attention economy, these tokens have value. And you said something that was really interesting. 0.06, whatever ETH is at the time, doesn't matter. I remember where that was quite some money. Right now, it's maybe around $90, whatever it is. But the bigger point is that you want people who are getting involved, who aren't in there to make a flip when it doubles, triples, quadruples. They want to follow the storyline with you. They want to see that you guys are strategic in how you implement things. Before I talk to you about AI, talk to me about, and I know you have a full social media team. I've spoken with them behind the scenes before having you on here today. They noticed our conversation with the good old Steve Miller from the ENS Shark Tank, which we'll talk a little bit about him and give him a shout out today with much respect, because that was the podcast in which brought us forth. But when you think about deploying, especially in crypto Twitter, tweets, what for you, and I guess advice for anybody who's listening in now, what do you think are the tweets from anybody's community that capture the most amount of engagement, true engagement, authenticity?
Yeah, the tweets that capture the most amount of engagement are the ones that stand out. And that, what does that mean to stand out? You've either got some kind of view that is different to everyone else's, that you're giving that perspective, or you're creating something that's really entertaining. You know, people are on their timeline. You got to think of it as this is a 3-second economy. You've got 3 seconds, maybe even less. Maybe it's a 1-second economy to capture the attention of the person on the scroll. So what is going to get that person to engage with that, see that, pause and say, oh, I learned something new. That's something different. I haven't heard that. Or that is really cool. I want to spend my next 10 seconds of my life, next 20 seconds, 30 seconds in doing that. So what do we do with Omega Runner to build our audience? We really brought out some really cool animated short clips, 10 to 15 seconds, no longer, each time building a little piece of that story. And with that mindset that you've got 3 seconds, you're in there for 3 seconds. Maybe you're going to get 15 seconds out of this person, maybe 20 max. How am I going to tell a message? What part of the story am I going to try and get someone to understand in this short space of time, and be able to work backwards from there? And then you've got to play the game of the algorithm. How often you post, what time you post, how consistent are you, when you're doing it, because the algorithm optimizes for all of that. So you also have to understand that portion of how you approach trying to build an audience on social media.
Especially recently with the algorithm. I know Elon Musk has been making a lot of big changes to Twitter, which is changing a lot of influencers and people who are on Twitter's just their mindset and their strategy. I think it's awesome what you're doing with the short form content. I personally am a huge advocate of short form content. I believe that everyone just has a short memory span or attention span nowadays. And it's almost like, even with the 15-second video, you almost need like 3 hooks in it almost just to keep people, like you said, 100%. 3 seconds, new hook, 3 seconds, new hook in order to keep them, keep them entertained, which is, I just wanted to comment that I just think it's awesome. Like the way that you guys and your whole team is just, working the social media platform.
And before we talk about AI and how that will impact NFT communities, and Tony, I'd like to do a quick screen share. Yossi, one of the best short form content creators, in my opinion, is my amazing co-host, Mr. Meta Matt. If we can do that screen share, I would just recommend for people to go follow him on TikTok. And the reason I say that is he knows how to get right to the point of subject matter. And he also really studies what is poignant in a particular day, because we know in this space, things are changing very quickly, and he knows how to keep on top of that. Now, I do want to shoot over and talk to you, Yossi, about AI technology, how I'm currently using it, how are you using it, and how do you see AI intertwining with NFT communities?
Yeah, sure. And before that, MetaMat, we should bring you onto our team. We need more people like you who understand the space and know how to captivate audiences and educate. So definitely should have that conversation. But on the AI side of things, we're learning as much as the industry is learning in real time. I have started using things like ChatGPT in being my ideation partner, coming up with brainstorming, thinking through strategy, really linking the world of knowledge that is out there and being able to bring it to my fingertips. So a couple of examples of doing that: I work with a coach who follows a specific framework. I have created my AI coach, and I've said, all the questions that I ask you, use this framework. And I know that the answers are coming back from within that framework. Anything that any challenge that I have, I use it as that thought partner to come back with. If you were my coach and I was calling you using this framework, how would you solve this problem? The world of branding, the world of marketing, the world of technology is available at your fingertips. So I have my branding chat where I say, use these 4 fundamental books that I think are the ones that really build the lexicon of knowledge in marketing and branding. in answering the questions that I come with. So that could be persuasiveness, the psychology of persuasion, influence, the psychology of persuasion. It could be the 22 immutable laws of branding. There's 3 or 4 others that I've put in there, and I'm getting answers from, as if I'm speaking to a consultant or an expert that I would pay tens of thousands of dollars. I now have them at my fingertips, and I'm leveraging AI from that. Now, what does that mean for the world of NFTs? We can get onto that. I'll pause for a second, and then we can go into how do I think this plays out in the world of NFTs and deep fakes, and is this good? Is it bad? And what should we be thinking?
Really quick, I think the prompts, like you were saying, is just so important. Like I used to say it's kind of like Google, but with Google is kind of the same for every consumer. You just write a question, it gives you an answer. With AI, it's almost like you have to build the AI, build the ChatGPT using your prompts and kind of like have it kind of customized to yourself. A lot of people just put questions in there and expect it to give them, like the meaning of life and all that. But that's just not how it works. It depends on, who you are and what you're putting in and what you're asking it to not only do, but also be like. It really depends on, like I said, the prompts it's really important. I think a lot of people look past that. They kind of use it like a Google, just asking questions as opposed to being like, I need you to act like XYZ person, give me XYZ advice for XYZ audience. Like you really got to kind of specify what you want with the search criteria, which is, I think, just a really,
the way I think of that is you need to think of yourself as the narrator explaining a scene to ChatGPT. Not that you are just inputting a question. You are saying, here's the context. You are this type of expert. This is the situation that you're in. You're trying to solve this type of problem. Using this information or everything that you know, how would you answer this question? Or even what would be the questions you would ask in this situation, and then let it come back. And you have that conversation. It really is a conversation, whereas Google has been optimized and designed to try and give you the information it thinks you're looking for in 1 second, and then you move on. This is actually to go deeper into it and to go into the conversation. It's a completely different mindset that you're coming into when you're at that terminal. You're thinking about it with a different context.
Your output is only as good as your input. And one of the things that you just said right now, when we think about conceptualizing technology in this space or how to move about, is think of ChatGPT as your thought partner. That, to me, right there, mic drop on that, because as simple as it is, you look at it, and I think about the questions that I was asking you today and some of the other questions we have lined up. I'll compare it. How can I ask this question which might elicit a different response? Not that ChatGPT is going to know you, because when we had our conversation, I said, for fun, Yossi, I said, let me just enter your name in and see what comes up. And you're like, that's old news. So I don't look for it to give me current up-to-date news or information on you, or vice versa for me. What I do look for it to give me is sort of a way to position the conversation to grow and extrapolate good information from you. And just to think about AI as a thought partner is powerful. Before we come back to more questions, because I want you to unpack some strategies for our listeners, everybody who's in there, and Tony, I'd love you to do a quick screen share. Today, Dario De Siena from Rotten Antisocial Club, the artist behind this collection, is giving 2 of his pieces of trash to a lucky listener or listeners. And I pluralize that on purpose because I want to see you guys retweeting, sharing the space. I see who's in there. I'm paying attention. Don't think I'm not. So I want to show love. I want our community to grow. I want to reward you guys for giving of your time at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is why we're moving to the evening time, because I want a bigger audience. And on purpose, I understand that during the week, not everybody has 12 o'clock to give. And we appreciate the after engagement on YouTube Shorts. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go and do so. And Tony, keep up for 1 more second on the screen share if you can. I just want to do it. If you guys aren't following Dario De Siena, I'll get those words out of my mouth. Please go and follow him. He's an incredible artist. He's always strategizing at such a high level. And I have a lot of respect for this individual and the community surrounded. So let's come back to you, Yossi. I want to throw this right back at you, right? On a high level for our listeners and viewers and myself, let's unpack some of the strategies around, I don't want to say turning a profit. And by that, I mean, someone gets into NFT communities and you have over 2,000 digital assets. There are a lot that you're holding long-term. We call it the hodl. And then we have the degen plays where you're like, I'm going to flip that. And one of the things from NFT Go is you buy 3, sort of a whale strategy. And I try to implement it as much as I can, depending on my liquidity. But we know that Big Ink would say I'm a big loser when it comes to buying and selling NFTs. So let's start on the side of being a complete degen. Of your 2,000 collection, How many of those have you flipped and had an upside profit and you appreciate it and you still stay in the ecosystem? And then how many have you held on to?
Yeah, so I'm probably a bad example for your degens in the community, because I hardly ever sell. And that's not an effective strategy if you're looking to make some short-term gain. So of those 2,400, I can think of 3 trades in my portfolio. I sold effectively 3 apes, and I wish I timed them all right. I sold one for $50,000, one for $70,000, and another one for $70,000. Should I have sold those 3 apes? In hindsight, maybe now is a good time to say that I've done okay on that, but I missed out on some airdrops. I missed out on some community building stuff. I missed out on some commercial rights. And those are effectively the only 3 I've ever sold. As a firm at Metaversal, we have a different view. We have a different way of looking at how do we invest in different communities and the artists that we collect and the supporters. We effectively and deliberately didn't set up a fund. We're not a fund vehicle. We are a holdco company. We have a permanent time horizon, an infinite time horizon. We have no forced sell mechanisms that we have to adhere to when we buy into a collection. And we think that's extremely important. When we go to Tyler Hobbs, an artist that we support and that we're big fans of and collect a lot of his work, to be able to go to him and say, we are holding on to this maybe for life. This could become part of our corporate collection, one of those that we huddle and never sell, because we think it is going to be a culture-defining asset that will be worth millions of dollars in the years to come as a icon of the generative art movement. On the other side, where we take more of kind of a utility-based bet, where we're looking at what is going to transpire in this community and how do we build a strong enough position in there, and how do we de-risk out of that position? Well, then we may look at, and we have this conversation with the founders. We will say, we love what you're doing. We love the technology that you're building. We love the community that you're going to go out and the position that you're crafting with this PFP as an example. Right. We're going to take a position. We're going to take a large size position in here. And over time, we are going to exit out some of that position and at least return our capital. And then we're going to probably hold the rest for as long as you're in the market and building, and we're going to see how can we support you in becoming the vision and brand that you want to become in this decentralized space, and become an activist in your portfolio, become a co-builder of the IP that you're trying to create. But we will de-risk. We will try and take our money off the table. Maybe we'll try and make a slight gain on it, but that's not the core intention. We're not really here to be the short-term flippers and traders. There is money to be made in it, but it's not our outlook. We think this is a 10-year multi-generational bet, and that we're at the first innings. And if you win the first innings of Bitcoin and you were just flipping, you lost out on generational wealth.
I'm curious. I know you said you have 2,000 plus NFTs. Does that mean that you disagree with Gary Vee when he says that 3 to 5 years, 93% or more of the projects are currently not going to be here? So I feel like you definitely have more than than 7% of the NFT projects out there. So are you just supporting, or do you actually genuinely believe that all of them are going to be here in 3 to 5 years?
Good question.
No, I agree. Gary Vee is right. 93% of them are going to be worth probably close to zero. So of the 2,400, the 226 collections odd, 93% of those are probably going to not be the ultimate winners. It's the same if you think in venture investing, a portfolio of companies that a venture investor will invest in, 93% of their portfolio probably is not going to do nothing for their portfolio. It's the one winner, it's the two winners, it's the Uber in your portfolio that ultimately returns the fund. And our thesis is similar, that we are going to need to be building out enough breadth so that we can make sure that of the winners, we are holding them. And that's not to say we will never sell out of those positions that we're in if we think that there is no chance that it becomes a winner, or we're buying it because it has some cultural relevance and these things are permanent. You don't know that. Let's use CryptoPunks as an example. You could have held on to CryptoPunks for 2 years. You thought, this is a bag. This is going nowhere. This is should be dumped. I'm not getting any return on it. And then all of a sudden, something happens in the cultural sphere that creates an inflection point for that project. And all of a sudden, CryptoPunks are now the blue chip iconic piece in your collection. But how can you determine blue chip and icon in a 3 to 4 year industry? and be able to predict that. So we take all of that into our consideration when we look at a portfolio. We look at the founders, we look at the creators, we look at the artists, we look at the culture, and we take a view. And we always rebalance. We say, every 6 months, what are we doing here? Are we still in this project? Are we not in this project? And we meet with the creators and get that information. Could we be trading and be momentum trading? If you want to go to the DGen culture, what goes up one day normally goes up the next day. You want to trade the things that are going up, don't trade the things that are going down, and get better data sources and be in the alpha groups and be able to learn about that quicker. And you're a momentum trader. There is a market and there's people who make a lot of money out of that and they accumulate ETH doing that. That's not us.
You spoke about two really powerful things, Matt. Great question. Two great things. One is the ultimate meta is the artist. And you spoke of Tyler Hobbs. I've heard of a number of times in generative art. And I think that's great and what it's going to mean long-term. And we're also sitting in an industry that's no more than 4 years old. And you talked about the utility side of, as you built this collection, which is not, it's not a Metaversal is not a fund. You're not creating a DAO where you're collecting things, we're rewarding. That's not it. But I think what the part is it's about when you get into something, you want to think about grabbing or capturing your initial investment to de-risk. So that way you're staying involved in the ecosystem, and the intention is not to pull everything out. The intention is to support that, grab the initial investment, and then let the rest roll. And I think we talk about financial maturity and the ability to look at things from a non-emotional standpoint. And I always remind myself every day, there are so many great communities that I love what they're doing. But I also don't want to kid myself in thinking that a lot of the communities that I'm in are going to go, that are going to just go to the moon, right? Because I have, in one of my wallets, I have 105 different digital assets spread across maybe, 70 different communities. And when I think about that, I can probably tell you, if I was to bet everything, my house on it, my all my other investments, I could tell you that 3 of those communities, I think, are going to survive. If I'm lucky, if I'm really honest with myself. And I think that's a really important thing to really drive home to everybody that's tuning in, is you're making some really good points. And I want people to then grab this, right? Because we got to plot, we got to plan, we got to strategize, and when we have to implement our next move. And just when you're out there and you're thinking about selling something, ask, why are you selling it? What is the ethos in Discord? Which I don't love Discord. I'm curious to have your opinion on that. And then Twitter. Twitter will really give you the insight, because it's not what is tweeted. It is how is your community responding. And I can tell you, I've been into a couple of your Twitter pages, and I like how your community engages. I like the comments. I like what people have to say. And I listen to that, because people, it's not about FUD like, oh, this project stinks, it's not going anywhere. But when you hear words of doubt, that is, to me, I think, really important. And I want to come back really quick to the AI point, because I think you made a really good thing, right? Is we talked about your output is only as good as what you input in it. And you look at it as it is your thought partner. So it will challenge your ideas, and it will hopefully create a better Yossi. It will hopefully create a better CraigO. As I want to continue this moving, and MetaMatt, if you can just tune into those Twitter spaces, just make sure that people are retweeting the room, because I do want to give out this trash, but we're just not giving it away. And we might put it on Yossi's shoulders today to actually pick the winner. So Yossi, you better be prepared. And let me tell you, MetaMatt comes very heavy with those rapid fire questions at the end. All right, so when we think about the NFT marketplace, we've got 10,000 active traders right now. And is there a broader market we can tap into? Because when I think about that, and I think about some of the volume that's going around each day, the millions of dollars being bought and sold and traded, and Swapbox is going to be a really cool product that we'll talk about probably in another episode. But we look at what's going on. Why only 10,000? I mean, I know we're only 4 years old, but what is it that we need to wrap our heads around long-term to understand our real growth potential with that number?
Yeah, so it's probably a misnomer. You're looking at 10,000 active traders. So what has the NFT market created so far? It's created 10,000 active traders. That's a segment of the NFT market. But then if you expand beyond that and you look at, well, how many NFTs are being minted every day? Who is starting to engage with this concept of a digital asset, a digital collectible, a digital trinket Think of Starbucks and their Odyssey program, where now you can collect a stamp and be gamified in that type of loyalty experience. I'm starting to see hundreds of thousands to millions of people starting to interact and engage in the NFT ecosystem. But what we're focused on in the short term, and it goes back to time horizon. If you expand your time horizon, what does the picture look like? In the short-term time horizon, all you see are the traders. And that's being incentivized by people like Blur Marketplace, where it's giving you rewards for trading, and really has brought us into the financial part of NFTs, which is just one component of what makes NFTs interesting. This whole financial mechanism that can be put on top of culture is an extremely interesting concept. And we're seeing the trading economy being built out of that. But there's this whole other economy that is being built out of it in terms of loyalty, rewards, utility, ability to access and membership that isn't on the speculation side. It isn't on the side of, I'm going to buy this NFT or I'm going to hold this NFT and it's going to make me a millionaire. It's not necessarily going to do that, but it is going to unlock community. You mentioned Discord. Maybe that you're interacting with that community on Discord, you're meeting new people, you're interacting on that way, or maybe it's giving you some access to some kind of new experience, some passport to some social currency or rewards. And that technology is happening and accelerating through and through. I was at Consensus in Austin and I saw the amazing innovations and technology that is being built in real time while everyone is sleeping, thinking NFTs are dead because there's 10,000 active traders. This is the time to be immersing yourself, making bets, investing in that infrastructure. And if you have a long-term thesis on the asset itself, buying those NFTs when everyone else is not here, because that's when money is made, if that's your primary motive, not when everyone is hyping into it and you're coming in with the rest of the hype.
I would say I hope for most people, it's a combination of making money when Lambo, and then obviously being the cool person at the table that knows about this really unique space, because it's still it.
It depends what table you're sitting on, whether or not you're cool.
Wow. Meta Matt went there. I love it. Good with those short clip reels. There are many elements for NFT investing with a long-term mindset. And we talked about some of the short-term. You talked about de-risking. Are there any other elements within that before we move on to our next thing with Meta Matt's update?
No, any other elements on that is, you got to think about the different types of NFTs. We mentioned Tyler Hobbs and a Fidenza. Let's use that as an example. It's a piece of art. You've got to think of it as a art buyer. Do you love the art? Question number one. Do you think it has some kind of relevant social commentary that it will stand the test of time? Do you think the artist is someone who can market themselves and position themselves and build their own personal brand? And if you're doing it as a financial instrument, then those are the questions you should be asking on buying a piece of generative art, as an example. If you're buying a PFP, we recently supported Mad Lads on the Solana ecosystem. You're buying a PFP in the Solana ecosystem. What is the view and the thesis that you're taking there? Well, now we have some incredible developers that are core to the Solana ecosystem. They built some new technology called XNFT. This is showcasing it. They've shown that they're being able to bring the right partners. They've got an execution capability. They're going to reimagine what you can do with NFTs. And this is the kind of their genesis pass into that. It's a different thesis and it's a different view as to why you're buying into that. Now, if you're just on Twitter and you're only using that as your input and all you're seeing is who's shouting the loudest, then you're just following where the crowd is and you're not making any kind of asymmetric bet because you have no thesis. So I would start with, what is the thesis of where you are placing those bets? What is your time horizon? Is it 1 day? Is it 1 week? Is it 1 month? Is it 1 year? Is it 10 years? It changes the things that you look at that become interesting for you to take some of your precious Bitcoin or some of your precious ETH and put it into that JPEG.
I love it. And you said two things that were really important, right? What is the relevance long-term? What is it now? If you're buying the art, do you love it? And then obviously time. How long are you going to be in that community for? Do you see yourself holding on to it for an extended period of time? So relevance and time, I think, are two really important things that I took away from that. Meta, I want to do a quick update with you. Maybe we can make this one interesting because we talked about your TikTok page and how incredible you are and why Yossi and you should connect afterwards, because by golly, this is the reason. I used the word by golly twice. You're the reason when we met at our conference here in Bridgeport, which we did Art of Everyone, which was in November, if I'm correct, guys, it was we connected. I watched your content and I was so impressed by how you were able to stay with relevant topics, but also how you were able to articulate in a manner which kept me engaged. Because we know that we have the attention span of gnats. If we're really going to be honest, we're always scrolling through our phones. And we get away from it. And to grab and keep attention and have the level of views that you've had on your content, hats off to you. So maybe I want to do this on a quick MetaMat update. How are people reacting right now in the Twitter space? Are we growing this room? Because I want to give away trash, and I'm just not going to give it away to anybody. And when we talk about that, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about goats of the metaverse. And we're going to talk about the podcast that you have, Yossi, and some of the incredible people like Ryan Carson. So before we do that, how are we doing in the Twitter spaces, Matt?
Yes, I'm looking at the spaces. I'm looking at the comments actually here. We got one person is looking for a question. Like you said, we do the Q&A afterwards on the Twitter spaces.
Correct.
Of course, as always, we got Matt Diaz, as always, listening and commenting. We got Spirit Zero. We definitely could use some more comments. We have 3 people. We also are live on the YouTube as well. Yeah. I posted the link right here. We can get some comments going there. I mean, it's going to be kind of hard just to pick between 3 people. Who's going to win 2 NFTs?
I'm not just giving away a worldwide recognized artist if people aren't engaging. I want to show the love, and I see a couple of people in there I do want to show the love to because they were in last episode. But I do want to bring it back to Yossi because I want to chat about, and Tony, if you can do the quick screen share. Like myself, one of your plays in growing your brand, Yossi, is that you have a podcast and you've interviewed Ryan Carson. You've been interviewed by Scott Melker. I watched that interview in its full. I want to understand around the way of recipe for podcasting and content creation success, because you have spoken with some of the brightest minds. You are a bright mind, and again, humbly speaking. But let's talk about Goats and the Metaverse and how this show came about, and what is its real, what's its most important impact for the people that engage with it.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And front of house, maybe things all look worked out, but back of house, you're figuring things out in real time. So anyone who's trying to create content and trying to figure out what their path is, a lot of it is just trial and error and learning from others in what works and what doesn't work. And Goats in the Metaverse, really where that was born from is me and a good friend of mine, another entrepreneur, his name's Stanley Maiden. I had been in the crypto and NFT world for quite some time. He's a card collector and has been collecting cards for a long time, and heard of these things called NFTs about 2 years ago, wanted to learn more, has a very different audience to your typical technical crypto audience, the traditional sports card collecting audience. And I was like, well, what if we combine these two worlds, this idea of collecting in the traditional world and this new world, and we create this thing called Goats of the Metaverse. So Goats is the acronym that comes from that traditional sports world, the greatest of all time, and who are going to become the greatest of all time in the metaverse, in NFTs. And it is a down-to-earth show that explains NFTs, what's happening in the industry, collecting to the common person, the common collector out there. And Stanley takes the position of being able to ask the stupid questions in the room that everyone is thinking and doesn't necessarily understand. And we're able to have fun that way and bring on some great guests who we can help break down what is the remarkable stuff that they're building and why this is interesting for you as a potential collector.
So when I look at your conversation, hold on one sec, Matt. When I look at your conversation with Scott Melker and I look at your conversation with Ryan Carson, I noticed 2 things. One is how they can hold a conversation really well, which is something I'm always appreciating I call it a conversationalist, because you want to make sure you're listening to your guests, make sure that they're being heard, and make sure that in real time, your time is valuable. So knowing that I take my notes, knowing that there's recap is so important, right? Because we want to do this space justice and create credibility. When you think about Ryan Carson and Scott Melker, which are 2 very different individuals, have different approaches on the interviewing process and content creation, what is a similarity that you notice that is their recipe for success? Is there one defining thing for those 2 gentlemen?
Yeah, and maybe I'll throw in a third one. You've probably heard of G Money and the brand that he's building, and 9DCC. We've had him on the show a couple of times, and what makes people stand out across all of our audiences is that they have a particular view. They have almost a singular view, and they're very good at being able to bring back to that, not in a rehearsed, scripted way, but they're able to just bring the conversation back to the main thing that they want to talk about, and be able to do that in an eloquent way that educates, a little bit of excitement and entertainment that is brought into it. Nothing, our lives are serious enough. We don't need to be serious in every single conversation that we have, but they're able to do that time and time again and break it down into simple terms. And the great people in this industry that are able to do that are the ones who can do that time and time again with any audience that they're speaking to, with any question that they brought in. They can just bring it back almost like a politician to their talking notes in an authentic way. So I think if you develop that skill, if you're trying to build your own brand, it is those 1 to 3 things that you're trying to get people to understand in the world today. We saw Balaji the other day. His bet didn't necessarily go well, but he's making a statement. He's saying, I'm putting $1 million on the line because he thinks fiat is shit. It's a pretty easy line for people to digest and understand. And he has his ways of doing it, but it's now standing out. He is now the person who is making that statement, in all the noise and everything. You can say whether he's sensationalist or not sensational. People are talking about him because he made one clear statement in a way that was interesting, that broke through the noise, with tens of thousands of other people saying the same thing. But he's the one that people are talking about.
Follow one course until success. And I love the singular view. I think that's incredibly important. So guys, make note of that in your mind, or write it down in your pen and pad. Nobody's sitting with a Twitter Spaces and being like, oh, let me make notes. I might be one of the few. It'd be great if I grow to that level and people are like, oh, CraigO's Crypto's coming on and he's going to have this guest and they're writing down their notes. Matt, what are your thoughts?
No, I think that you're spot on, having that theme, one defining theme that your audience knows, when they go into every Spaces podcast, whatever it may be, this is what the theme is going to be. This is kind of where it's going to all get drawn to. I think that's super important, because people, unfortunately, people like to be led, and they kind of like to know what they're getting into almost. And you're talking about, speaking of brands and all that, I'm just curious, with your podcast in particular, everyone, for me personally, with my TikTok short form video, I'm always thinking about the audience I'm trying to reach. How would my kind of audience react to XYZ video, which might be different than a different audience. I'm curious what your audience targets are, for both your podcast, but also just for your NFT project.
Yeah, for the podcast, it's the I would say it's kind of like the enthusiastic collector. It's not the person who is the degen, who is in this every single day and wants to know to the nth degree the kind of technological innovation, where's the alpha and the day trading. It's someone who wants to keep a ear to the ground about what is happening here, what's interesting, and when something piques their interest, they're like, oh, I like that, I'm going to buy that, but I'm not thinking about this every single moment of my life. This isn't the thing that I'm like in, day out. And so if you're that kind of person, you're like, I heard about NFTs, I collected some cards in my time, I really want to learn about this stuff and understand what it means. Maybe it's got an impact for my business. Maybe it's a direction I want to go in. That's the show. We're that show to listen to. In terms of the Omega Runner universe, it's very much, if you want to be in, what does it look like, almost behind the scenes, to create a Web3 leading entertainment brand that has the links into the things that you would want to have access to in Hollywood, and you can be invited to that table and be part of that journey, then that's the audience for that consumer, for that project over there. You want to be entertained, you want to learn, you want to be behind the scenes, and you want to have access to some real people in Hollywood who are there in the Discord and chatting to you every day, then Omega Run is the community for you.
What a way to connect with communities. And I do want to give really quick, if Tony, you can do that quick screen share, and then we'll just pop off real quick. There we are. So in the middle is Easton. He's the gentleman with the bald head. To the left of him on that screen with the nice hair is Benjamin Minsu. He is the founder of Metaverse X. You can come off of that now. Thank you. They went last Thursday. My friends from X First had a meeting with the core team from Metaverse X in Austin. And I guess what I can tell you is it was quite the event. They had plenty of alpha where they strategized, a lot of camaraderie that filled the room. And the word on the street is huge. X versus vision around utility and supporting Metaverse X, both on and off chain, received very positive reactions. And they managed to solidify many important relationships, adding a ton of value to their network. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for Multiverse X in 2023. And they could potentially make moves towards US mass adoption. I always get excited to watch how different blockchains are building. And Yossi, let me throw this over to you. There are probably 35 plus identifiable blockchains out there where people can buy different digital assets, different crypto. I mostly stick with, I have Multiverse X, I have eGold, I have Ethereum, I had Solana, I sold some. When you look at it, right, and you think about the mud on your shoes, I don't want to get so far where I'm so confused. I'm degenning in this, then I'm swapping out this token for that token and trying to connect this and that. Because after a while, what I came in for, what I love, is now just complete money play. What are your thoughts around keeping things simple?
Yeah, I think keeping things simple in crypto and in your broader strategy in life is always a good bet. You know, you've only got so much time and attention that you can give, and it goes back to that time horizon and thesis. Like, if you could have just taken a strategy over the past 2 years that all you did was trade Bored Apes, and you were deep in the Bored Ape Yuga ecosystem, that would have been an effective strategy. You didn't even have to worry about other chains, other projects. All you immersed yourself deep in the world of Yuga would have been a fantastic trade for you to be able to do. And people did that in the Bitcoin world, and all they do is focus on Bitcoin. So I think you've got to take a perspective of how much time and attention do you want to dedicate to this, and how deep can you go, or how wide can you go? You know, going deep into just one chain, Ethereum as an example, that is already a pretty broad statement, because there's so much happening just on Ethereum. You want to become the expert on new chains. That's your strategy. As a new chain starts to emerge, you're going to be first in buying the first collections in that chain as it happens, and you're going to be the expert on identifying the new change inflection point. Well, then that's what you're spending your time doing, and you've got a strategy as to why you're spending your time doing it and doing that. It really just comes back to, what's your strategy here that you are backing up with your time and attention, as opposed to, if all you're going to be doing is getting your Twitter thread every single day, and every morning you wake up and, what does Twitter tell me to do today? Well, then you're just going to be pushed from next hype thing to next hype thing to next hype thing, and you're 7th on the list learning about that. You're not number 1 on the list learning about that. You're number 7 on the list, and you're someone else's exit liquidity that's happening there, if you're not at least choosing some kind of strategy that you're able to say, I'm tapping into the right sources for information. I've got an idea of the direction that I want to go into. I see the kind of projects that align with my thesis, and I'm going to go, and that is where my edge is going to be in this market.
You speak of conviction on the highest level, right? Because if my conviction was Bored Ape, and you know that, like, I guess a month or two after, it really didn't move for a little while. It actually would have allowed a lot more people to come in, and then people have this regret. I compare our Web3 space to Las Vegas, and probably one of the things that has saved me is this podcast, because I get to learn from pros like yourself who come onto the podcast every single week. And then I get to think to myself, okay, does this make sense, or what are they doing? And I love how you're building a Web3 entertainment brand with the highest level people in Hollywood. And I think about the intimacy of the token holders and how they're going to interact and engage. And you just said on Discord, on your Discord channel, how you've got some of the top people there, because that is a utility, is access to someone or an experience. It doesn't even have to be an experience, but access to information, because knowledge, we know, is power. And I know for some it might sound redundant or corny. It is something that we talk about every single week. This doesn't have to be sexy. This isn't about showmanship. This is about learning and implementing and strategizing at the highest level. And I know that you're going to probably have this answer for me, and I know it's going to be a very funny one. And it's a very elementary question for you. What are your short-term and or your long-term crypto plays? And I know it's not going to be the typical answer that people might be expecting.
Short-term and long-term crypto plays is pretty much the same every day. Accumulate more ETH and Bitcoin, and do everything in my power to do more of that. So what gets me more ETH and more Bitcoin exposure on a day-to-day basis? I am of the view that I'm already underexposed to both of those assets, and I live in that world.
Well, wait a minute, Yossi, but you're turning green on me. I think you look a little Pepe to me. I mean, are you having Pepe regret? I just want you to be honest. $200 would have netted you $2 million. Come on, where's your conviction?
I missed out on that. But let's use Pepe as an example. My lens is always on the NFT lens. Pepe as a meme is going to continue. I think it, the more it goes, the more legs it gets, the stronger it becomes as a meme. And in the Web3 world, it's a cultural relic and icon. So where are the rare Pepe icons in this industry? If you missed out on Pepe on the meme coin, there's some rare Pepe Nakamoto cards. Where are those undiscovered cards? Maybe you should be paying a play in those cards. And what's the price point today? Building your collection there. There's some CCO Pepe projects that may be interesting at this point in time while everyone is looking elsewhere, that you could be going and sourcing on that. Because in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time, what is going to be the ultimate flex? Is it going to be your Pepe shitcoin that has a high inflation and is going to be worth most likely zero? Or is it going to be one of the Nakamoto Pepe cards as a cultural relic in this time where you can be paying a bit? So I use that as validation that this thing of Pepe is going to become more and more culturally relevant and desired. And what are the assets that represent that today, and how much are they priced relative to what I think they're going to be worth in the future? So I've just given away a little bit of our playbook, but you asked.
I love it. I love it. That's why I love the replay. Right. I want to throw it this way because we're 7 minutes past the hour. I'm going to let Matt hit you with some rapid fire questions, and then I'm going to let you reverse it and throw 2 questions at me. And then we're going to exit out of here, and we'll stay in Twitter Spaces for like another 5 to 10 minutes. And that's how we're going to end this episode. I'm so grateful, Yossi, to have you on. You're a bedrock of knowledge. I could have continued the conversation for another 2 or 3 hours, but it gets me excited about Omega X. It gets me excited about Metaversal. I also enjoy your podcast and connecting and tuning into you. And I can't wait to see these post clips because I think we have a lot of great conversation from today's episode. So Matt, hit him off with some of those rapid fire questions you're so well known for.
Yeah, so the first one is a little bit less rapid fire. I'm just curious. We were talking about Multiverse X, Easton and Maddie heading out to Consensus 2023. I'm looking at your Twitter page here, the Metaversal Twitter page, and it looks like you also, I see you here in the video, you also made a Consensus 2023. I wonder what your biggest takeaway, as far as from NFTs and crypto perspective goes from the event.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway being on the ground is that if you move away from the screen, you see an industry being built in real time with some of the most clever people I've ever met in my life who are building real game-changing, culture-defining technology, and it's not reflected in the price point on the charts today.
Mm-hmm. And so I was talking about Metaversal. What celebrity voice actor would be your dream hire for these Metaversal studios? I know, like we were talking about Stoner Cast, they had Ashton Kutcher and a whole bunch of big names. I'm curious who your big one would be.
It would be Barack Obama. I think one of the greatest orators of our time. If he was telling some of our stories, everyone would listen. That
would be interesting. I would love to tune in just to see that. Do you believe to God, we were talking about, all the different blockchains. Do you think the gods, and, they moved over, will ever flip Bored Ape Yacht Club ever, going forward?
Well, I'm biased. We are big holders of DeGods since their Solana days. So, yes, they certainly should and would and need to. And I think that, that future reality is definitely a potential for them. They're building some really incredible stuff, and Frank is one of the best community builders that I know.
He's just a great, just with social media, the whole 9 yards community. Speaking of which, there's a lot of great people out there who do that with Twitter Spaces, podcasts, shows. I'm just curious, I know you're very busy. So when it comes to your limited free time, what's Twitter Spaces, podcast, or live streams in the NFT space are you currently tuning into?
Yeah, I listen to you guys. I listen to Bankless quite a bit. I like what the guys are doing there. It's probably the 2 front ends, and then in terms of kind of Twitter Spaces and content, I'm a big fan of Rug Radio, NFT Now, and the Nifty, and those are my data sources on NFT culture and the degen world in Web3.
So this is one I ask everybody. We're just comparing to Gods and Bored Ape Yacht Club, another 2 NFT projects I personally think are very similar in the sense that they are very big on community, might have a floor price that is a little bit lower than what I think they personally should be. Alien Friends versus V Friends Volume 2. In 2 years, which one do you think will have a higher floor price?
It's a good question. I wouldn't bet against Gary Vee.
Neither would I. So I
Mm.
know, I myself, I'm a big stock trader. I also like to do crypto trading as well before I got into the NFT space. I'm just curious, what's your if you don't mind talking about, your biggest win and biggest L when it comes to either crypto or NFT trading? I know with NFTs, you said you only really sold those 3 apes. So I'm just curious, maybe with crypto, what was your biggest win and biggest L?
Yeah, biggest win is, and hopefully it'll continue to be my biggest win is I was early into the Arweave ecosystem. Like the idea of permanent storage is a 0 to 1 bet, and I think the ability to archive the world's information is extremely important and will become more and more valuable as we see more misinformation starting to hit our world. So Arweave is a big bet that has been fortuitously, very good to me, and I think it's going to. I think it's still very much in its early days. I was early into the investing in companies that were building on blockchain, not Bitcoin, and spent a lot of my Bitcoin on investing into those companies that were building on blockchain, not Bitcoin, trying to do land title registrations, deeds on the Bitcoin blockchain, etc. This was before Ethereum existed, so there was no kind of idea of smart contracts. And if I look back at that Bitcoin that I used to invest in those companies, that is a very painful thought.
Yeah, I have some buddies who were, OGs in the crypto space. They were showing me emails where they were like, they get like someone, like their one exchange that they were at, like they had like these gas fees. They were arguing over like 22 Ethereum gas fees. Like, no, it should have only been like 15. It's like, geez, back then, like just thinking about like arguing over 15 versus 22 Ethereum, that's like, this is insane just to think about.
Isn't it?
Like I said before,
Yeah.
I'm a big stock trader. I'm just curious if you do trade stocks. If so, or if not, why not? And then if so, what are some aspects of stock trading that you would like to see implemented into the NFT trading markets, whether it be like stop losses or maybe like dividends versus staking? I'm just curious what your thoughts on all that is.
Yeah, I don't trade stocks. I buy an ETF. I've been buying one since I was 17 years old. Every single 2 weeks, I dollar cost average into that, and I don't think about stocks any more than that. I
That's
don't
fair.
trade them. I don't have any edge there. I don't have any asymmetric information. It's not the place that I kind of felt was called to, but I know that it's part of my investment portfolio that I should have exposure and build it over time because compound interest, is great.
That's smart, definitely. No, the passive investing is definitely a way to go, especially if you have, all of your attention going into the NFT and crypto space and other things like that. Last question, because we were talking about Multiverse X. I personally didn't know much about them before meeting Easton, and even after Easton and Maddie, I still just thought like, oh, great, it's another Solana, basically, or whatever. Like, but now I'm starting to see them like really show up. We're talking, everyone always thought, Ethereum and Bitcoin were going to be two top dogs. Obviously, I think they still are. But recently, Solana, Cardano, Polygon have been kind of gaining some traction, and the Ethereum sales have been going down. As far as the NFT side of things goes, I'm curious, out of Solana, Cardano, and Polygon, which one is your favorite blockchain when it comes to NFT trading?
When it comes to NFT trading, I would have to say Solana. It's just got a much slicker UI UX experience. Phantom Wallet versus using MetaMask, and you have to trade onto Polygon and the gas fees associated and the time of transactions. So if I were to make a bet just on that perspective and dimension alone, I would say Solana. Polygon has the fact that it's EVM compatible and has the whole ETH mothership that it can plug into and a much bigger community. But I think Solana is probably showing that its resilience is going to build more confidence in developers building on top of it. A newcomer in the space, you didn't ask about it, but I'm interested in what Sui is doing and where that's going to go. Being able to build an object-oriented blockchain on top of C++ opens up a world of developers that something like Rust or Solidity doesn't have the same kind of reach, and where developer capabilities is an interesting place to watch.
Cool.
I love that. And by the way, Meta, those are some great questions. It just will remind me to rewind that tape, but I understand why you're bullish on Solana. I completely get it. I do real quick, Tony, before I turn the questions over to you. I'm gonna, you could ask me 2 questions in just a second because I always like to flip the table around, especially because you're a podcaster. So it's always fun when I get to have someone who's in my realm on my episodes. But Tony, I want to do a quick screen share really quick. Those who are not following Mr. Steve Miller on the ENSR Shark Tank, this is how we connect at Yossi, is how your team discovered me in the podcast and met Matt, my amazing co-host. So just super grateful to have you here. You can come off of that screen share. Thank you so much. And Yossi, throw a couple questions at me. I always enjoy these conversations, but I sometimes like to turn the tables really quick before we go off to our Twitter Spaces.
Yeah. First question for me is, what's on top of your bookshelf that you are reading now, or the book that you always go back to because it's had some kind of impact on you, and what was that?
Yep. So next week's guest, actually, Matthew Snyder, who's actually in the audience, I believe, in Twitter Spaces, he wrote Warren Buffett in a Web3 World. We know how much Warren Buffett loves Web3. So he'll basically extrapolate different statements from Warren Buffett, and he will then say, well, if Warren were to like the Web3 space, here would be his advice. And It was a very easy read, and I really enjoyed it.
Really quick, seeing as you both are in the content space and the artistic space, my personal favorite is it's not the art of war, it's actually the war of art. I have it back there. It's a really good read for those of you who are in the artistic realm, and even just content creation is art, I believe.
That's awesome. 48 Laws of Power is another good one by Robert Greene.
Next question. What do you do in that moment when you really don't want to do the thing that you know you need to do, and you push yourself to do it? You create content every day. Not every day is energizing. You're like, so I have to do this today. What is the thing that you do that gets you over that? Something you say, something you do, a ritual?
It's actually reminded me just Kevin DeGods when we had him on, feed the pigs. Right now, I just, when I don't want to do something, I do it. And I notice that when I'm in it, whether maybe it's working out right now, I'm really working out of it. It's like my first time that I'm going to be boxing in June. And so, getting punched is not something I'm used to. So today I get to get in the ring and get knocked around a little bit. And I'm not looking forward to it. But I know that in order to prepare for the boxing match, I must be a midlife crisis because I'm 45. I'm going to be 46 this summer. I don't know what it is, but that's what I would say is it's feed the pigs. Whatever you're doing, that is the one thing I need to do today is get my workout in, and I need to get hit. And I'm going to make sure they throw a nice shot in from this podcast.
Matt, what about you?
Hi. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely relate from the content perspective. I used to, like when I was really, really going hard on Twitter, on TikTok, I was doing 3 per day, including weekends. And that was a lot. And these like high, it took me around like 5 hours just to get them all, the research, shooting them and then editing them and then posting them and then trying to promote them. And it's a lot of work. And so for me, honestly, it's just the goals, having goals, having a plan. This is my plan to get to the goal. And as long as I just keep doing that, hopefully I'll eventually either get to the goal or eventually, in a year come, if I'm not getting to that goal, then find a way to, to change that plan or adjust the plan, just like with trading, as long as you have it, like you were saying, as long as you have a plan, it doesn't matter if it's degen trade, invest, whatever it may be, as long as you have the plan or following that, so you have to get to your goals, you're doing something right.
And by the way, what we're going to do in Twitter Spaces, I'm going to pick one winner. I'm not giving away 2 pieces of trash. We're going to hold on to one of them just because I want more engagement. And I think I want to see that people are earning it. So when we go into Twitter Spaces for about 10 minutes, and right now we're at 119. So we're going to exit this episode. And Yossi, it was an honor to have you on. Stay with us in Twitter Spaces.
Real pleasure to be here.
For some Q&A. Thank you. An honor, my friend. All right, let's exit out from this, Tony.
Thank you so much for watching CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. CraigO signing off.